Hi guys, this is a review of the SYM Wolf 125cc motorbike. This is my honest opinion after 10 months and around 6,000 kilometers. This review might be a little bit harsh as I previously owned a Suzuki LTZ 400, which is one of the best quad bikes on the market. I bought this bike because I needed a way of getting around Lisbon, and riding a quad bike in town is rather dangerous and the fuel consumption is astronomically high. So I decided to buy a 125cc and the Wolf was the best candidate. It was the best looking bike and also the cheapest, at around 2,500 euros with all the paperwork included. I am doing this review because I couldn't find a decent review online when I bought this bike. Let's start with some of its features. The bike has a slick design, and it looks awesome in white and yellow. The bike features a superb dashboard with a racing style startup. On this dashboard there are 5 lights. 2 for the indicators, 1 for neutral, 1 for maximum light, activated by the pass button, or a normal switch on the left-hand side, and an engine light. There are also 2 buttons, which allow you to change the speed from kilometers to miles, plus lets you see your trip distance, or your maximum speed. You can also change the clock. The bike runs quietly, which in my opinion is a good feature. My brother does not agree. The bike's suspension is long and high, which really smooths the rough roads, however it is still firm enough to be agile. The front wheel has a disc brake, while the rear wheel has a drum brake. This wheel has a wider tire base compared with other 125cc motorbikes. The gearbox has 5 speeds, and the engine can only be started by the electric start. The headlights have 3 levels of intensity. To make other road users see you, you can always use the pass button, which is rather useful as it flashes the headlights and cars seem to really notice it even in the daylight. And as a last resort you can always use the horn, but please don't use it if you are in a civilized country. Continuing, there are also indicators and a brake light is activated by both brakes as it should be. The brake light is nicely visible when you brake. The fuel gauge has 5 levels plus a reserve which blinks. There are 2 parking stands, but you really don't want to use one of them. I will get to that later. But all this you can get on a spec sheet. What I guess you really want to know is how does it drive, and most probably any issues that I have encountered. So let's start with the positives. What I like, the ride is good and comfortable in short drives. What I mean is drives shorter than 60 kilometers or so. I will tell you why later. The suspension is very good, comfortable but stiff enough to handle well. The front brake is good, works well with the front suspension, making the overall braking rather good. The headlights are very good and so night riding is not a problem, in town or even in pitch dark roads. The dashboard display is very nice, easy to see during the day and night. The pass button works well, as I described earlier. The fuel consumption is good. For the last 2,000 kilometers I have been collecting data and the average consumption is around 3.4 liters to make 100 kilometers, or about 83 miles per gallon. The gear ratio of the gearbox is good. All the gears are well balanced, and in 5th gear in flat terrain, the revs are just entering the red line, and in hills the bike uses the speed well, which means there's no reason to reduce gear. Actually the biggest effect on top speed is the wind, rather than the slope of the terrain. Even with a passenger, the same top speed and cursing speed can be achieved. The handling with a passenger is almost unchanged. Now let's review the drawbacks of the machine. The worst feature of this bike has to be the side parking stand. It uses a heavy spring because it does not have a cut-off switch, so the mechanics say. This spring is horrible, you must keep your foot on it while the bike leans. Hence, the intuitive thing to do is to remove your foot to be in a position with balance. However, if you do, the stand will close and the bike will fall. This was the first thing I was told in the store when I went to get the bike, as many customers had been going back to buy parts. Why? Because each time the bike falls one of 2 things will happen. The clutch lever will break or the left foot rest will. Also the gear shaft will bend. So if I was you, I would remove the side stand before you even ride the bike for the first time. Me, my brother and my father have all let the bike fall like that. The clutch worked fine on gears 2 through 5, but getting started in first gear is not that smooth. I have taken it to the mechanic, they have tightened the chain, but it still does this bouncing motion and this mismatching sound. It's not the best. Tires behave okay on dry condition, but it's a complete different story on wet conditions. Driving on the rain is scary, the rear tire keeps sliding. Even if you are super careful with the clutch when you reduce a gear, the tire will lose grip in wet roads. Maybe it is because the rear tire is too wide, making it prone to aquaplaning. The engine, the motor spits oil and trips over 100k. No doubt I normally ride it at full throttle, which is between 100 and 115k on the motorway. The engine light/oil light blinks and there is nothing on the manual suggesting why. I thought it was running low on oil as it keeps spitting oil. Mechanic says there is no sensor, and it is purely to say to go for a checkup. One other improvement that they should consider is the mirrors. They vibrate constantly to the point that the rear view is a smudge. But you can still understand if there is a car or not. Fuel tank is big but difficult to fill up to the top, due to the safety valve being too low, which is a shame. Also, the lid of the fuel tank does not close properly, it is secure but not level. Note this bike, there is no storage space, not even papers. The passenger seat can be taken out to access the battery, but there is no extra space. The passenger seat could be more comfortable. It's too hard. Final thoughts. With the same money you can buy a second-hand smart car, so if you don't really need a bike, think about it. Keep in mind that your travel time will almost double in a long-distance trip. You can overtake, but the majority of the time you are just going the speed of the trucks. Even though the bike says you are doing 100k, by the GPS you are actually traveling at about 91 kilometers an hour. And if you go at that speed for a long time, more than 20 or 30 minutes, the engine will spitting oil. If you are not planning on driving long distances, nor driving in wet conditions, this is a very good bike. And to finalize, I strongly recommend you remove the side stand. Thanks for watching. Hope it was informative. I'll leave you with some driving footage, so you can appreciate the bike's behavior in different conditions.